Thank you, Speaker. I rise today in support of the Public Health Tobacco Amendment Landlord Offences Bill 2025. Speaker, plain and simple, people in Pittwater want shops selling illegal and illicit vapes and illicit cigarettes gone. There are too many of them: Mona Vale, Newport, Narrabeen, Bogola, Avalon, the list goes on, and not just one tobacconist in each suburb, but multiple. Even today, with no knowledge that this bill was before the House, a constituent sent me a photo of a full menu of illicit products in plain sight at one of these shops. I also note that at the same time, our villages are suffering. We have lots of empty shop fronts sitting vacant for years, and yet amongst those empty shops is a disproportionate concentration of tobacconists, many, if not all, selling illicit products. I understand and do appreciate the broader context, and we've heard from many speakers today, that we are in a cost of living crisis, cigarette excise is high, and cigarettes are extortionately expensive for people, and they are looking for cheaper alternatives. It's the reality that they can purchase illicit cigarettes for $40 cheaper per packet in some places, and that the whole system is to that extent broken because it undermines the public health intent of excise to discourage smoking, but also deprives the Commonwealth of revenue. It is a lose-lose. But that is actually not why my community wants these shops gone. They want them gone because they're backed by organised crime, and we simply cannot allow organised crime to operate physical distribution networks on our high streets. It's fundamentally wrong and it's unconscionable. And of course, as we address this issue on our high streets, we may see, and I think in some areas that we've already seen, posters popping up with QR codes and other ways that illicit cigarettes and vapes will be sold, there's no doubt, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do everything to address these shop fronts being distribution networks for organised crime and illicit substances. I also want to acknowledge that worse still is the deliberate targeting of children in my electorate. It's not abstract, it's happening in plain sight, and local Facebook groups report this on numerous occasions. I'll quote one from Avalon What's On. Someone recently shared an experience, and I quote, "I confronted a shop owner about selling vapes to teens in school uniform. He thought I was talking about primary age kids in his shop, and went on to describe how he lets them only just have one puff on a vape." Let that sink in, primary age children inside a retail shop being offered a puff of a vape. Another constituent witnessed local high school students as young as 14 in school uniform purchasing vapes without challenge in these shops. Concerns are particularly acute in Bogola, Mona Vale and Avalon, where shops selling illicit products are located alarmingly close to schools, sporting facilities and places where young people gather. And all of this is occurring, and the commentary that I've just provided from Facebook groups is occurring even though we now have some of the strongest laws in the country, and this is precisely why we need the bill before us. The reality is that the laws alone and the current enforcement arrangements are not enough. New South Wales now has a licensing scheme, closure powers, seizure orders, but none of that matters if we don't have enforcement, and because what these retailers are already doing is illegal. And we need to be honest about that enforcement capacity. We simply don't have enough people to enforce these laws at scale required. Even with increased enforcement resources, the number of illicit operators vastly outstrips the number of officers able to investigate them. And I think doing some numbers today, I think each individual officer would be required to go in, raid, I think 270 or thereabouts premises. I do believe that this work cannot rest solely with New South Wales Health, and I know there have been discussions about this in the past, and the operations, because they're linked to organised crime, there should be a greater role for police, and I know that's the perception on the ground in my electorate. I do acknowledge that more than 66 tobacco stores have been shut down in raids since the laws came into effect in 2025. According to my previous questions on notice, 4141, number 4141, on the 29th of February, 2024, New South Wales Police conducted raids on 3 tobacconists across Newport and Mona Vale. A total of 1,800 nicotine vapes and 2,219 illegal vapes and products were seized with an estimated value of about $64,000, and legal action was taken against shop owners. In November 2025, Newport Mini Market became the first business in my electorate to be shut down under the new laws, receiving a 90-day closure order. But, Mr Speaker, this only scratches the surface. The bill before us places responsibility on landlords, and I think that is important to be able to address this issue given that we've got low capacity when it comes to enforcement, although again I welcome the announcement today of more enforcement officers. The landlord responsibility will be significant, with penalties of up to 1,500 penalty units, which equates to $165,000, or 1 year's imprisonment, or both. I do feel we need this because otherwise we will continue to face the whack-a-mole problem: shops closing, renovating, rebranding and reopening. And in fact, one of the only shops to have been closed down under the recent 90-day shutdown laws is already preparing to open, and we can see signage changing only the other day when I was down at Newport. We know others will pop up next door, which this legislation seeks to address. They will shift from convenience stores, no doubt, to cafes and other hybrid operations, and enforcement may not keep pace, which is again why this bill matters. By introducing liability where a commercial lessor knowingly permits illicit trade, this bill hopefully will cut off the oxygen supply. However, it will only work if landlords and commercial agents are properly informed. Many of the commercial agents I've spoken to in the last week or so in Pittwater are actually unaware of the changes before us. This is despite the government doing appropriate consultation and doing extensive consultation. So despite this, some of these commercial agents weren't aware of this legislation before the House. To their credit, they have reported to me that they are already requesting proof of a licence. However, we do know that some licensed operators are hybrid operators and they still engage in illicit sales also. So licensing alone is not enough. Landlords across entire shopping strips, not just those currently renting to potential tenants engaging in illicit retail, need to understand their obligations, and they need to know what knowingly permitting means and what reasonable due diligence on their behalf looks like. That remains unclear. For example, under Section 50G1 of the existing Act, a closure notice must be placed on the front door of a premises. The question is, will that be considered sufficient to notice of a neighbouring landlord if that operator simply moves next door? Of course, I do not take lightly the imposition of these liabilities on landlords, but I do believe this reform matters, and it matters also for other small businesses on shop fronts. The New South Wales Small Business Commission has reported insurance increases of up to tenfold due to risks associated with illicit trade of neighbouring retailers, and that's impacting people in my electorate, and particularly we've heard in Victoria that being an issue as well. I think it's the master grocers who have highlighted the increasing rise of insurance costs and even uninsurability for some businesses in neighbouring areas. I also acknowledge legitimate operators in my electorate, including my local friendly grocer, who do the right thing yet report losing scales, and they've also been targeted for selling cigarettes with ram raids. I know from speaking with Metcash and other stakeholders that other legitimate businesses like IGAs are also suffering when they are the ones that are contributing to excise revenue and doing the right thing. I want to acknowledge that landlords and agents in some landlords and agents in Pittwater are already refusing to rent to these operators, and they are the model landlords. They are requiring proof of compliance, and they are flat out refusing to lease to tobacconists. Like the member for Wagga, I have requested further information from the government about how raids are conducted, how agencies coordinate enforcement, what constitutes due diligence, what is expected of landlords, how they're going to communicate this to landlords and also to commercial real estate agents, and what is considered knowing under this bill. I'm also concerned that despite increased resources, operators may be giving warnings. So I have heard that instead of going in and doing the shutdown, we've got limited resources, and I have heard, and it's not substantiated, that officers may be giving warnings instead, which I consider that we don't have capacity to do, and we need swift, decisive action. And I would like to hear from the Minister as to whether warnings are being given or whether officers are just going on and giving them the full force of the law. Success, as we know, will not be measured by the number of raids announced or press releases issued. Success will be measured when our villages no longer are used as distribution networks for organised crime. Whether the shop front says tobacconist, convenience store or cafe, we need to know that no illicit trade is occurring. This bill will help achieve that, and I commend it to the House.
I thank the member.